I'm joined now by Lawrence Amadi, Head of Tech Assurance at KPMG Nigeria, to review some of the headlines in greater detail. Welcome back to the show, Lawrence.
Thank you very much, Rolake.
And compliments on the season. Great to have you back.
Thank you.
Trust you to start with a football story. Your obsession with football is pop. Are you a Man U fan?
I'm a Chelsea fan.
You're a Chelsea fan?
Yes.
Okay, so are you looking with glee at this acquisition by Jim Ratcliffe of Man U, or are you thinking, oh, not good for the rest of the football world?
So, first of all, let me say compliments of the season to all your viewers. If I look at the acquisition by Sir Ratcliffe, I think it's one that tells you this guy who's a fan from boyhood wants to now play a role in decision making at his boyhood club.
Okay.
So I reckon he says, look, it's about time I do something. He's a maverick billionaire and, very keen to say, look, how do I also dictate play, dictate some of the recruitments we have in the sports directorship functions and the likes. And I think that's what's driving some of the passion.
Well, I mean, but do you think he's also frustrated? Man, you have not won the Premier League since 2013. So part of this acquisition, it's not just going to be him sitting on the sidelines. He's actually going to want to roll up his sleeves and try and deal with some of the things that are happening.
I think he's going to want to do that. If you see the number of Glazers out that they've had over the last 2 seasons, I think it's a lot of noise.
Okay.
The Glazer family is also saying, okay, you know what? We can do with less pressure. Happy to sell. I think they make good money as well, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Given how much the entry point fee
they
pay.
bought it at 709 million, so that's
there we go.
100% increase in valuation.
25% stake.
Yeah, 25% stake.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty major boon there for the Glazer family. The Qataris were outstepped out of this ones, and they've been making their inroads into the sports world in terms of investments.
Absolutely, and since hosting the World Cup, I think they want to have a stronger stake in the game.
Okay.
You can see Saudi also making a lot of move, bringing out the big names, So I think it's just Middle East Asia trying to make a statement in global football.
Yeah, indeed. Let's see if all this acquisition actually makes a difference to their Premier League prospects in 2024.
But I would say 20 titles. So you still have to give it to Man U.
Okay, let's give it to them. I'm an Arsenal fan, so yeah, it's whatever. Anyway, Israel has granted $3.2 billion for a new chip deal and been backed by the US. In the midst of all that's happening in the Middle East with Israel and Hamas, what was the significance of this particular deal?
I think it sends a message to a lot of governments globally that you've got to think about the future a lot more. First of all, what does Intel do? It's an American company. They're in the semiconductor space. They do quite a bit in the IT hardware space. We all know chips are going to be so important going into the future. So it's investing for the future. And, Israel is currently caught up in, a very dicey situation at the moment. But it's not stopping someone who's thinking and saying, you know what, let's invest for the future for
I mean, clearly there's a business and commercial rationale, but to what extent is this a way of endorsing and validating the support the US has been providing to Israel in the midst of this crisis? What do you think?
So, it's a very dicey topic.
Okay.
When you think about the support they get, because again, the Middle Easterners feel like there's that bias against them. But I think Israel making this sort of move, certainly just reassures America that, look, we're still going to be in bed for a long time to come.
Yeah. So we also have this story on global deal making, which is down. It's below $3 trillion for the first time in a decade. That's not too surprising, given all the geopolitical issues, the tensions, the stock markets, commodities markets. Where are some of the big trends with this global deal making, and why have we had this slump?
So I'll start off by saying the world has to remember that COVID never got ended.
Okay.
So we just never got any endemic pronouncement. The world just carried on.
Okay.
And as the world carried on, shareholders also started questioning the sort of value they get from M&A deals. And that's why some of them started, getting a bit more conservative with big ticket deals. And this certainly played a role in slowing down some of the deals in 2023. The big tech deals we've seen have happened in the sciences space.
Okay.
And we've seen a lot of big ticket deals in the fintech and technology space.
Yeah, of course, and we'll be talking a bit about those ones. So there's been quite a lot of M&A activity. But in terms of how you think emerging and frontier markets have fared compared to advanced economies, in terms of the global flow of capital, what are some of the things that have been highlights for you?
Key highlights, I think Africa continues to be a very interesting space. Parts of Asia continues to be interesting. The world is looking at where would population increase be in the next 10 to 50 years. And that's where most of the flow of funds, seems to be going to. Recently, KPMG published, doing deals in Africa, thought leadership, and there's that whole focus on most of the top corporations coming into Africa.
Yeah.
We see a move in Ghana, in Kenya, and of course in Nigeria.
And what are the really interesting sectors that have been the target of those deals?
So target sectors, solid mineral, the mining space, digital, because there's opportunity to also, spread our connectivity and broadband a lot more. And I'm sure that the Minister of Communication certainly also is positioning for some of those opportunities in Nigeria.
Yeah, interesting time. Now, streaming businesses. We've all been watching the Netflix Christmas rom-coms this year. Maybe you haven't, but I have. And Netflix seems to still be head and shoulders above its peers. A lot of the traditional media houses that were trying to get into streaming business have incurred losses. What has been wrong with trying to copy Netflix? What have they missed? What tricks have they missed here?
So I'll put it this way. If you're not traditionally built to be a lean and agile company, you struggle. Netflix, very, very bullish company. The guys are driven. They've got a culture of get it done now, and and we've got to move. If you look at the traditional players, slightly slower. They've got massive workforce. They've got bureaucracies to go through. So those impact businesses in general. In 2018, I think Time Warner and AT&T merger happened.
Yeah.
I don't know if that worked out really well, but it just tells you that, look, you've got to be leaner, you got to be faster, you got to learn to fail fast, fail forward.
Yeah.
But you got to be quicker. That's what Netflix is doing correctly. And that's why these guys are struggling.
So there's been a slump of about 5 billion in losses, revenue losses for these streaming services. And it's interesting because even in the market, in frontier markets like Nigeria, if you ask somebody whether they have Disney streaming or one of these others, you don't find anybody who subscribes to these services. So clearly they need to grow their market share. But interestingly, a lot of them are actually moving to merge and create these big, large corporations. That sounds a bit counterintuitive because the idea of being nimble and agile, merging and bringing your workforce together, is that really going to help them?
Well, one of the things we learned in business school is when you have these mergers happen, if you're not very decisive about the right team size, the right organizational size, and the guys who should do what, then you're going to have those troubles. If you still have the traditional roles, again, there's a reason why you would find a chief innovation officer in a Netflix.
Okay.
And you may not find one in the traditional players, again. So it just tells you where's the priority, where's the focus, what are the guys doing differently, how they're posturing, and how quickly can they imbibe digital transformation initiatives into their businesses.
Yeah. We've got one more story to get through. We may not explore it extensively because we're going to be talking about tech, but the New York Times is suing Microsoft and OpenAI for copyright infringement. Tell us what exactly is going on here.
Well, I guess my first reaction when I saw this was, where do you draw the lines on privacy?
Okay.
Because if you've made information available publicly, either on your website, the terms and conditions
around that.
Yes, around that.
Although the New York Times might argue a lot of that is behind paywall. So it's kind of semi-private.
So again, if you look at the ChatGPT and the entire OpenAI concept, what's happened is they've used publicly available information to train.
Of course, that's the whole idea of machine learning and language models.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's not very difficult, and it'd be interesting to see what the U.S.
court says. It's going to be a very difficult one to rule on. And, I was speaking to someone, yesterday about the whole the legal intersection with technology is going to be a big and booming area in 2024. But we'll be talking more about tech and AI and all things tech, I guess, in a short while. Thanks for staying with us on the show. You've been hearing me speak to Lawrence Amadi. He's going to stay with us. And after the break, I'll be joined also by Folusho Gbadamosi, tech guru and executive director of Junior Achievement Nigeria, to discuss global tech trends in 2023 and beyond. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Business Week on Arise. If you heard me earlier on the show, I talked about the good news which Nigeria received, which is that the 2.5 billion of the total 3.3 billion cash for crude swap deal between Afrexim and NNPC Limited has been received by Nigeria. Independent sources within the oil industry confirmed to us, Arise News, on Friday, that the deal, which was initiated several weeks ago by Afrexim with Vitol, Sahara, Oando and other traders, has materialized. Now, the finance minister had talked about receiving this money as part of government efforts to stabilize the FX situation in the country. And before we get into today's discussion, I just wanted a bit of a take from Lawrence, our guest in the studio, on what this actually means and its significance. Yeah.
Thanks, Rolake. So what does it mean for us? I mean, it just helps us manage the pressure a bit more.
Okay.
We know a lot of companies depend on the USD for doing business in the country. The central bank has struggled in the last 2-3 years to stabilize the economy. Inflation is hitting, an all-time high as we speak. And this is because we're a very import-dependent country.
Right.
So this deal comes at a really good time. We need more of such arrangements, but we've got to also look at the terms. What are we paying as a country?
Yeah. Yeah, and interestingly, it says it's a cash for crude swap deal. So, of course, oil production is involved, and we know there's a lot of work we need to do around our oil production to get it up to levels going forward.
Correct.
But in terms of what you would be telling your clients in 2024 about the FX situation and FX outlook on the back of this deal, what would you be saying to them?
So we just have left an election year.
Right.
With 2023, it was a very dicey, gloomy picture because you just don't know where things will go. But I think with this sort of deal, 2024, hopefully, will be a lot more stable, focused.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, we'll be monitoring that story more here on Arise News. So please stay tuned throughout the course of the day and, of course, the coming week for more on that deal that was struck with Afrexim and NNPC. So, welcome back again. Today we're talking tech, and I told you at the top of the show, I asked the big question: how would you sum up 2023 in 2 words? Do you know what my 2 words were? Artificial intelligence. Well, do my guests today agree? We'll be reviewing the tech stories and themes of 2023 and beyond, and how they will impact the way we live, work, and play. Joining me on the show is Folusho Gbadamosi, Executive Director of Junior Achievement Nigeria. She's a tech expert and Gallup Certified Strengths Coach. She holds a bachelor's degree in computer science and a master's in information systems, a member of Forbes Coaches Council, and certified by Yale, IA Business School, and MIT. She's recognized for her impactful work in women's empowerment, digital transformation, and humanitarian service. And of course, she's received several awards. So great to have you on the show today, talking tech. So I'm going to start with you, Folusho. What were some of your big tech themes for 2023?
Hi, Rolake, and thanks for having me. Very similar to you. Artificial intelligence.
Okay.
But even beyond that. So, ironically, this time last year, exact same date, December 30th, 2022, OpenAI launched ChatGPT. And generative AI is what took over, I think, the whole of this year, because everybody was a mixture of excited, losing their minds, confused, and bewildered by what ChatGPT and generative AI has done and will be doing and has the potential to do. So that would be what it was for me for this year.
Yeah, and Lawrence, what were sort of your big tech headlights?
So I think Folusho has probably captured the key one. But if I were to just add to that, it would be the augmented reality, virtual reality world also taking a step, closer to getting more commercial adoption, because people want to get a better feel of destinations, houses, events. So they're connecting on VR, even gaming.
Right.
So gaming has gone to a level with AR via, enhancing it a lot more.
Yeah, indeed. And Felicia, you talked about people losing their minds. The question on my mind is people losing jobs potentially because of AI. And here are some of the headlines that we had for AI this year. I think the producers will show it on screen. Microsoft, of course, investing in OpenAI. The EU introduced the Artificial Intelligence Act. Human writer or AI scholars build a detection tool to determine whether something was human done or AI done. We had Amazon Web Services joining forces with Hugging Face to empower AI developers. ChatGPT outscored medical students on a complex clinical care exam. That was one of the most scary for me. Then we had Google's next generation AI model, Gemini, which outperformed its AI GPT-4. And of course, probably the biggest story of the year is Sam Altman, founder and CEO of ChatGPT, is fired, then rehired. Talk about a maverick and a comeback. I mean, in terms of AI, when we sort of unpack it, Felicia, you had an opportunity to host a fireside chat with Sam Altman this year. You got the opportunity to interview him. Did you get the sense that this was really going to transform the world? I mean, what sense do you get for AI?
So even before chatting with Sam Altman, I definitely felt that it was going to transform the world. And there are many reasons why. So I studied computer science and graduated like donkey years ago in 2002. And when I look at how even that course has evolved, even I'm freaked out.
Right. You feel like you need to go back and do another degree?
No, for sure. My degree is ancient. It's as ancient as the dinosaurs because everything is evolving so quickly. Like it's evolving at such a rapid state that I think that even those that create these software or these tools themselves don't really know how far it can go. I think it's just a matter of you thinking, okay, perhaps it'll go this far. During the conversation with him, though, what I did get was a lot of concern for countries to adopt policies that would drive for responsible use of AI.
Okay.
Because responsible use of AI is extremely important, and we cannot just leave it, bare. Because the truth is, once something is open source, anybody can get their hands on it. And once anybody gets their hands on it, how far can it really go? I mean, there's so many countries in the world. There's so many tech gurus in the world. Nigeria, as an example, we have a 70% youth population. Even though many of them do not have digital skills, the few that do are really, really smart, and they were born in the digital age. And so they're coming up with different things. And that's in Nigeria. Talk less of other parts of the world that probably has less infrastructure issues. So he was really pushing for, responsible use. And so I was quite happy when I saw that the EU came up with an act. I mean, I know that it's a work in progress, but I think that everybody just needs to figure out how they want to ensure responsible use within the confines of their countries.
Yeah, very interesting on AI there. And, you talked about Nigeria and young people, and one of the big themes this year has been a lot of people have been tracking what the Minister for ICT and Digital Economy has been doing. Yeah. And how impactful do you think some of his policy pronouncements and initiatives have been so far with regards to technology?
I guess, so I'd say, first of all, Dr. Boso Tijani being very open towards collaborations and partnerships is going to take Nigeria some step forward. He's talked about passing on knowledge to about 3 million Nigerians. I guess the whole idea is we've got to create more unicorns in the country, so we've got to replicate.
Those are companies valued at over $1 billion.
$1 billion, correct. Yeah. We've got to replicate more Flutterwaves and Paystacks, have more people emerge and impact the country a lot more in a positive way.
Yeah.
National broadband plan, very important. The current internet penetration in the country is about 55%. Broadband, maybe just under 50%. So there's work to be done. And he's got to invest in these areas. And if I look at the budgets for the minister, a lot of the target is in these areas.
Yeah, indeed. And, Felicia, you work a lot with young people through the work you do at Junior Achievement Nigeria. And, I made a joke earlier about the loss of jobs when you were talking about the loss of minds. And we have a graphic here by the World Economic Forum that sort of shows the top skills or the top jobs that will be the requirement of the work of the future. Yeah. Given Nigeria's burgeoning youth population, are we preparing our workforce right for the future of work? And what does the future of work look like in Nigeria? Let's start with that.
Okay. So the first question, which is, are we preparing our people right? I would say no, a big fat no. It's a real challenge because the education system is not currently preparing for the realities of the future. I believe, and I've been saying it for a long time, that any job that can be automated will be automated. So if anybody is working...
Can you even give us some examples of some of those jobs that you think will...
Look at that
chart there.
One of my favorites, accounting.
You think accounting?
Data entry clerks, admin and executive secretaries, stockkeeping. Look at this right there. Accounting, bookkeeping, and payroll.
Is a top 10 fastest declining job.
They will be automated out of a job. It's a no-brainer. It's not even something that we even need to have a back and forth about. It's just a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And I think that similar to how many digital technologies, if you look at the past 10, 15, 20 years, have come and taken over many things. I'll give you an example. There was no such job as a social media manager when you and I were in university. Actually, when three of us on this table were in university, it didn't exist. Now that is a very big job. I see a lot of people, asking, do you know somebody who can manage my social media and all of that? What I'm trying to say is that there will be new jobs and there will be lots of jobs. Now, what is important for us as human beings is not to act like, we can't hear or we can't see, and be very, very honest with ourselves about the fact that anything that can be automated will. I mean, if you think about generative AI as an example, almost everybody has played with ChatGPT or Google Bard or one of those, and there's so many more. What those have done is they've made our work time quicker. So for instance, there are many things that I would usually ask somebody to do for me that I don't need anybody to do for me. I just have to go on there, type something in, and it solves it. It's all about having the right prompts, asking it the right questions. So I definitely think that a lot of what the minister is doing is great. I think that he's very focused on getting Nigeria to the place where we don't have an issue when it comes to, just keeping up with the rest of the world with this. But I do think that our education system needs a serious, very intensely serious revamp.
Yeah, and I was saying, I think you and I were chatting when we were saying that any sort of degree or qualification that doesn't incorporate some sort of artificial or technology element, you have to question the relevance of it going forward to the future. And even those of us who are professionals need to start retooling pretty fast. But another sort of theme which intersects with AI that I wanted to talk about was cryptocurrency, because that segues into the tech world, blockchain, the whole FTX, Coinbase, Binance. What does 2023 tell us about the future of cryptocurrency, particularly with all these penalties and clamp down, Lawrence?
I think the cryptocurrency world is going to keep growing.
Okay.
I recently also just watched a documentary on the guys who lost money on FTX. And all the billionaires or all the guys that lost money were asked, would you continue to invest in crypto? And all of them said yes.
Oh, really? Well, you said they're billionaires, right? So they have a lot of change to lose, clearly.
So, but these guys are, it just tells you how bullish they are about the crypto world. Someone has gone somewhere to curate this digital money. It took a long time before Satoshi Nakamoto came up with this thing. And Japan, they've advanced in the crypto world. Today, they have regulations around it, probably the only country that's managed to regulate crypto. And it gives some confidence to players, potential players, existing players. The world will continue to embrace it. In Nigeria, there's been some reversal in what we had under the last central bank governor.
I would say cautious reversal with some guidelines and regulations around it, yes.
But it does give people some extra confidence to say, okay, you know what, we still can potentially play in this space.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, because the same way I would never have envisaged a world in which crypto would be regulated. We talk about AI regulation. It is possible that sometime in the future we will move to some sort of global AI regulatory standards, but I guess that would be a discussion for another day. One of the stories I covered earlier this year was a major cybersecurity attack on a port that really brought an entire port operation to a standstill, impacting global operations. And I think that a lot of companies have not paid enough attention to cybersecurity, particularly ransomware, which is becoming a big area. What more can companies do to protect their technologies, their data platforms? I don't know if you have.
One of the things I think they can do is what we call the red team, blue team defense strategy.
Okay, what's that? Sounds like a football game.
Yes, it sounds
like football analogies.
So essentially, you've got to create an intentional attack and also create an intentional defense for the attack.
Okay.
And you got to do it yourself. So create the external pen tests, create the internal pen tests, and have a team that responds to this. This is the only way you can stay up, because with the emergence of open AI, you're going to find a lot more sophisticated attacks coming through.
Right.
Because the hackers will get ideas, better ideas. So internally, you've got to structure how you respond, because it's about the response and it's about ensuring that you don't allow this filtrate the network.
Yeah.
Once the attacks come, this is the only way you can stay up.
And of course, you have to protect consumers' data, clients' data.
100%.
Felicia, with all of this innovation we're talking about, is it from cybersecurity to cryptocurrency to open AI? I'm thinking about the future and outlook for startups, because many African and Nigerian startups are at the cups of this innovation. And how can we position Nigerian and African startups to really lead the next wave of innovation? We know that the Minister for ICT and Digital Economy is doing a lot, but what do you see as some of the drivers that could really help unlock growth for the startup ecosystem in 2024?
That's a great question. So I think, first of all, considering this large youth population that we have, I think education is extremely important. But outside of that, we need to stop seeing ourselves as consumers and move on to being producers. So there's many local problems that African startups, Nigerian startups can be more intentional about solving that can actually go global. There's many issues and problems in our society that can actually be solved using technology in a very smart way. And I think that really should be the focus for a lot of the startups. I find that many startups like to do like the whole bandwagon thing, where one company does something and they all do great. Oh, so Flutterwave, is a unicorn. Let's all do what Flutterwave did. No, why don't you do something else? Because they tapped into an untapped market at the time. So why don't you look for something that is untapped in this huge country with so many resources and also so many problems that can be solved, and try to focus on that and make it something that can then be exportable. Because if you think about how companies become unicorns, they don't become unicorns by solving a problem that
locally
is just local.
Yeah.
They solve local problems that can go global. And we have many problems here that can potentially go global. And we also have many young people who are, already immersed in some of those things and have those ideas.
Yeah.
So that would be my advice.
Do you have any ideas of what some of those areas might be, maybe in the technology space, what some of those problems might be that need a technological or innovative solution?
I think healthcare, education, agriculture. I think those three are really, really major. And I think many of the solutions in those areas can go global because, once again, on our continent, so our continent is humongous. Sometimes when you think about going global on the continent alone is can actually make you a unicorn. The opportunities are so vast within this continent alone that if we focused even just on here, we could go far. And I think that those three areas are really, really important areas. Healthcare and education for me are they're like almost like at par because they are so major.
Yeah, very interesting. And do you have any thoughts in terms of areas for startups to really cut their teeth in to drive innovation and solutions?
So I would align with Felicia. I think in addition, food security, on the continent is big deal. We all see how the supply chain potentially can be transformed to ensure that we can actually do more. We still import a lot of things that we consume in the country, despite the investment in agriculture to date. We can change all of that if we just can transform the food distribution channel.
Yeah, several years ago, I remember there was a wave of companies who were looking for digital transformation strategies. I worked with employers who had embarked on 2-year, 3-year digital transformation strategies, which that was like 5 or 6 years ago. If you're an employer now or company and you want to embark on a digital transformation strategy, given how technology has evolved so fast, what areas should you really be looking at for your digital transformation strategy not to be stuck in the Stone Ages? What would you say? Maybe Lawrence, I'll start with you.
Okay, so I think you've got to start with the customer.
Okay.
Every digital strategy that is supposed to be successful or that will be successful starts with the customer. We spoke about Netflix earlier. If you take Netflix and you maybe just try to dissect what their omni-channel strategy did look like, they know that sometimes this is a young, moving, workforce. People want to carry on watching whatever they were watching on their laptops, on their TV screens, on their mobile. So the omni-channel has to make sense. So someone's thought about that in the digital transformation journey, that customer satisfaction, very important. I think if you make it about the customer, you would succeed.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is the fundamental crux of just being successful. Everything else about, digitizing or automating stuff can come later, but just target the customer.
Yeah. Felicia, I'll ask you the same question in a different way. So if you were advising a company today on their tech strategy or their digital transformation strategy, what areas would you say, you need to position yourself to look at to scale your presence in the market or your services or products?
Yeah, I think Lawrence has hit the nail on the head by saying focus on the customer. And I think in addition to that, I would say that if you have any sort of data, right? So there are many companies that already have data, but they're not using it for anything.
Right.
And that data often gives you answers to many questions. I mean, he was talking about Netflix. Netflix uses data a lot. It's so obvious. I mean, everything is customized.
Everything is, you feel like you're the only customer.
I'm telling you, it's so personal to you. That's like your best friend, right? And then you would also notice that they've started doing a lot with Nigerian movies and Nigerian content because they have clearly seen that there's something about Nigeria. It's the same way I keep saying, why did Sam Altman come to Nigeria out of all the other countries on the continent? It's data. Data tells you which way to go. So companies really need to focus on using their data better. And if you're not collecting data, you should start collecting data. I would say in addition to that, just on a very basic level, whatever processes you can automate them, because automation of processes saves you money, it saves you time, it's efficient, and it also helps you figure out what to really focus your energy on. I find that many companies without automation are focusing on things that they should not be focusing on necessarily. Lastly for me is honestly collaboration tools. So I think that working from home / hybrid working has to become the reality. There are many young people I talk to and they don't want to go back to the office every day a week. In fact, many of them are like, if they are interviewing for jobs, I mean, it's a bit interesting because employers are just like, Gen Z are very interesting. But the truth is that Gen Z people are interviewing and telling you, I don't want to go to any office Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'm happy to maybe go 3 days a week and 2 days a week. So I think collaboration tools are very important so that people can continue to work efficiently as hybrid.
Yeah, as we come to the end of the show now, it's been an interesting discussion. I wish we could carry on. And I'm even fearing for the jobs of news anchors, TV anchors, because I did actually see a clip where there was a whole generative AI news anchor giving the news, and it was so real. But
Absolutely.
so in terms of what you're most excited for in 2024, I'll start with you, Lawrence, and how Nigeria as a country can position itself to become a global tech hub. What are you most excited for in 2024, and what can Nigeria do to be in a leading position? And I'll ask Felicia too, very quickly.
Okay, so I'd say the chip industry.
The chip manufacturing.
The chip industry, I think, is going to be one that continues to, it's been there, but it's going to continue to gain momentum. And why do I say that? If you walk into a smart home, and we're getting more smart homes delivered today, the refrigerator, the entire house is communicating with you. It's all possible because there's a chip in there that allows it connect to a Wi-Fi device or to broadband. So the chip industry is going to get bigger. How can we position? I think we've got to also say, whatever government is trying to do now, they've got to also just allow either investments in the area, supports the area, policies that help enhance the area a lot more. I think it's something we should look out for 2024.
Yeah, fantastic. And there's been talk about, Nigeria becoming like India. It's now a manufacturing hub for a lot of these chips, semiconductors, a lot of business moving away from China to India. Felicia, what about you?
Okay, so I'm very excited about AI and, and more, and what else can we expect? I think Nigeria has such a great resource in its people. Our population, our youth population, I think, is like our greatest gift if we're able to, kind of harness it properly. And so I'm really looking forward to the government focusing on infrastructure building, just to make sure that we're actually able to get some of these things done. And of course, education. Education covering what it needs to cover so that we can really equip our people for the future. Yeah,
fantastic. It's been great talking to you, Lawrence Amadi of KPMG, and Felicia Gbadamosi, tech expert and executive director of Junior Achievement Nigeria. I'm thinking next year in these seats, I'll probably be talking to AI holograms, and I won't need your presence in the studio. The rate at which innovation is moving. But Happy New Year to you both in advance. Hopefully we can talk more about this in the new year. Okay. Well, that's all we have time for 2023 on Business Week. It's been my pleasure to have kept you abreast during weekends this year of the top global economic and business stories that impacted the world in 2023. I look forward to continue the conversation online and in 2024. Do have a lovely weekend ahead and, of course, a very happy and successful new year. I'm Rolake Akikube Filani, and I'll see you next year.